You hear me?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Wardell, first, thanks for inviting me here. Glad to be here with my friends George Lyon and Jake Dickerson. And again, my name is David Elwell. I'm running for sheriff. My work history is I worked for 24 years for Blackman Township, retired from there in 2004, was asked to become chief of police for Columbia Township in 2005. I walked into a mess, and with the support of the board and the officers that worked there, we got it cleaned up. Spent 15 years there, and last summer, really last spring, I made a decision I was going to run for sheriff. It was based on a number of things. One of the biggest things was the controversy with our current sheriff. There were some very hurtful statements that were made by him, and there was an effort to get him to leave. He decided not to, so I concluded in July of last year that I was in fact going to run for sheriff, not just based on that, but I had some different ideas about policing in our county. So I filed, and I also decided to retire to be able to run full-time, and I retired from Columbia Township on April 3rd of this year, and I've been dedicating that time to campaigning as your sheriff. So I do have some ideas on what our law enforcement should be from the sheriff department. I think clearly, and I've said this on my Facebook and publicly, the department needs to diversify, and I do have a plan to diversify the agency, not just from the bottom, but from the top. And when I start there, assuming I get elected, my first moves will be to have a change in the upper command staff. I plan on replacing both of the captains and the undersheriff with new people, and I'm hoping to be able to diversify the agency at the top level by having a person of color in one of my captain's positions. I've said that publicly. I've been making efforts to find the right person for that, qualified, experienced, and a person of color. I also have plans on diversifying the agency from the bottom by reaching out to the leaders in the community to help find people to come into the agency, and also by working with our human resources department at the county to find ways to bring more minorities into the department. I think it needs to be diverse to help build the trust back for the agency. I have publicly named who my undersheriff will be if I'm successful. His name is not strange to people locally here. His name is Mike Jester. He's got a long history in law enforcement, 26 years, very trusted, very valuable, and will be a big part of the change in the administration there. I'm sorry, Wardell. We good?
They don't work at the same time. Let's turn that one off. All right.
Is Jester the Blackman County director?
Wardell, he is the director of public safety for Blackman Township right now. That's correct. So that's my my background and history. I've lived in Jackson since 1978. Put myself through the police academy locally, and of course have 40 years in law enforcement. Of the candidates running, I'm the only candidate that's run a police agency, managed a budget, had personnel issues, contract issues. Most of you, or some of you, may know that I'm also a Jackson County Commissioner. In addition to being a detective sergeant at one time and a police chief, in 2000 I chose to run as a Jackson County Commissioner, and I've been elected to 9 terms to the Board of Commissioners since that time. This will be my last year. You can't run for 2 offices, nor would I want to. So at the end of this year, my term as a commissioner will be done. And assuming I follow the same path, I'll have 18 years without missing a single business meeting of our Board of Commissioners. I'm known to be a workaholic. I'm looking forward to diversifying the agency and making sure it's an agency that all of us can be proud of. And I look forward to the election on August 4th. The first question, I think, was why did I not support the resolution that was presented by Commissioner Mahoney? So, Wardell, I think there were a lot of things in the resolution that were not set in stone in my mind. For instance, there were figures given on the number of minorities in our county versus the number of minorities that were working for the county. I don't necessarily agree with those numbers or know that they're 100% accurate, but the issue of systemic racism is one that I listened to a radio interview between Commissioner Mahoney and Greg O'Connor. It was a couple days after our meeting. And I appreciate how hard Daniel works. He does a very good job of representing the city, he and Darius both. But Greg O'Connor asked Daniel that very question, if he believed there was systemic racism in our county. And you can go back and listen to the interview. It's on the radio, and there was a long hesitation, and his first answer was that he wasn't sure. Now, that was in the resolution. I'm not sure that there is either. Do I think that there should be further discussions about that issue? Absolutely. Absolutely. But the maker of the resolution, again, could not answer affirmatively, positively in his own mind that he believed there was systemic racism in our county. I'm sorry?
We believe there is.
I understand that, and I am certainly open to discussing that and being educated on it.
Every level. You can look at our healthcare disparity numbers in Jackson County, and then you'll see some systemic.
Just to go off what you said, I'll give you a couple examples of our systematic racism, right? I'm gonna give you my personal experience. As a 24-year-old black man, I still owe the courts $280 because of a ticket that I got. My mother, who is a white woman, she owes the courts $580. Since this pandemic, me or her have not been able to pay our fines because we haven't been able to go down there. We have missed the same amount of fines, but she owes double of what I owe. Do you know we got a letter the same day? Her letter clearly states, please keep up on your payments, you are behind. My letter states, I will have a warrant out in my arrest after 8/13 if I do not call up to the courthouse and pay $180 of my fine that I owe. Mind you, I only owe $280. My mother owes $580. She gets a letter saying, please keep up on your payments. I get a letter saying, you need to pay now or you're going to have a warrant. Here's another thing. A man, I'm not going to put names out there because I don't know this person or this case that well. A man was driving down the highway, white man, crashed into a car, killed a kid, got 4 years, right? My brother, who was 14 at the time, committed one crime of a B&E and did not break into a building, and at 14 got sent to prison. 4 years. Those are signs of systematic racism in our county. That a white man who murdered a child high off drugs get 4 years, and a black man who committed one crime as a 14-year-old juvenile gets sent to prison for the same amount of time.
Pedophiles too.
Pedophiles too. Those are just some things. We're not going to keep you up here that long. We appreciate your time. If anything else you say, you can go ahead.
What was the other question?
Wardell, thanks for those examples, and I take them to be as you tell me, but I'd be happy to sit down and listen to those things and talk about them. I'm not saying they're true or not true, but I'm certainly willing to being open to talking about them and looking at them.
Sheriff, what's your plan to fix it?
I'm sorry?
As sheriff, what's your plan to fix it?
So the sheriff doesn't have any say about fines and costs. That's through the courts. But I'm saying that I would...
address systemic racism in this county and in this community.
I'm willing to come here and talk to you to learn more about it, and I'm willing to sit down and talk about it.
You voted that it wasn't a problem in the county, but yet the city passed it. So because my son lives 2 blocks outside of the city, we live in the county, racism isn't an issue out there, but it's an issue 2 blocks up. How does that make any sense?
So again, to point out why I voted no on that resolution, it was because I didn't necessarily agree with everything in it. Am I willing to sit down and talk about that with people? Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's a strong
But
answer, though.
again, I listened to one of the commissioners on the radio a day or two after the resolution failed, and he himself could not say that there was systemic racism in the county. And you can listen to the interview yourself. It's
That's
posted.
privilege. It's not a problem to you because it's not a problem to you personally.
Okay. Wardell, I think, did you have some more questions for me, Wardell?
I got one for you.
Go ahead.
And then I'll let you go. What are some things in your personal life that you do to... Oh, thank you, Wardell. What are some things you do in your personal life to help improve the community and lives of the citizens here in Jackson, Michigan? Not professionally, but something you do personally.
So one of the things a cause that's near and dear to my heart is the right to life. And I've been part of that movement for 16 years. I donate to the cause. I attend their events. I speak openly about it, and I'm not afraid to put on my campaign literature that I'm part of the right to life movement because it's important to me and it's important to life. So that's one example I can immediately think of.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions?
Cool Ranch or nacho cheese?
Oh yes, Cool Ranch or nacho cheese? Cool Ranch or nacho cheese Doritos? Seriously.
Cool Ranch.
All right, there you go.